Veterans have unique life experiences that impact their well-being. How can loved ones support veterans and open the conversation around mental health?
The first thing I'd say is better educating ourselves. I think that's a good place to kind of start. Understanding, common issues that veterans may face to provide the best possible support. We hear a lot about PTSD, but how familiar are we with what that actually means? And also it's kind of like worth noting, PTSD is not that much higher in the veteran population compared to the civilian population. So we got to sort of check our own assumptions too that we may have, because not every veteran suffers from PTSD. But, getting familiar with military culture and the unique challenges that service members and veterans face, what they go through, during, if they were deployed, their pre-deployment, their deployment, and, post-deployment challenges, what happens with transitional periods and how veterans face, increased challenges during those times. These are all things that we can get better familiar with. And the information is out there. So there's great resources, free resources out there. There's actually a place called Psych Armor that has over 200 free trainings on military culture related things, and it's free to access. So that's, I think, a good place to start. If someone's talking with you, really listening and listening without interruption or judgment, it's really essential. Sometimes just knowing that someone is genuinely there can make a huge difference. So I'd say, like, if a veteran entrusts you to speak with you about their mental health or the experiences that they've had, don't take it lightly. Be present, be non-judgmental, try to really listen to what they're saying. Because I think it's important that we ourselves create a safe space to kind of normalize those discussions, and letting them know that it's okay, to talk about these feelings and these experiences openly, because this can be really difficult for veterans. A lot of times they're trained not to be vulnerable, and so they may associate that discussion or talking about these things as a weakness. So we really have to make sure that they know we're a safe person to have that conversation with, and we do that by kind of practicing some of these things. And I'd say at some point, if during those conversations that we feel it's appropriate, don't be shy about encouraging somebody to seek professional help. And not everyone's always ready to do that too. So understand that this could be a little bit more of a marathon than a sprint, but I think those would be a few good places to kind of start thinking about, how we can be better support.
Man Therapy has a variety of resources on mantherapy.org that resonate with veterans. What Man Therapy resources do you like to share with veterans that can best support them?
One of my favorite things about Man Therapy is when you jump on the website and you are greeted by none other than Dr. Rich Mahogany. What I like to say is it's like Freud meets Anchorman. So in my experience with veterans, this cheeky yet thoughtful approach to talking about mental health really helps bridge conversations about mental health to taking some action related to it. And what I really like about it is that it's very easy, it's very informal, and it's anonymous. So it's a great way to kind of get people thinking about their mental health as a nice little stepping stone to doing that. So one of the things I really enjoy on the website is the head inspection. And it's great because it's not your typical sort of assessment that you would think of when you consider reaching out for help in a more formalized way. It approaches the topic of mental health with, with some humor coupled with serious questions to get a better idea about how you're doing. And believe me, anytime you integrate humor in the picture with veterans, it's usually a win. There's a lot to be said for that. I really appreciate on the site that the topic of suicidal thoughts is a part of those mental health topics that are listed there that people can explore. And we know that veterans in general are at a higher risk for suicide. There's also even populations within the veteran population that are at an even higher risk for suicide. So this topic being there, being up front, I think is great. It really normalizes that people have these thoughts. This is common, not just for people that, are experiencing mental health issues. It's for, lots of people have these kind of thoughts. And I think I really enjoy that it really kind of says, hey, this happens, and why does it happen? Here's some reasons for that. That's an important topic that needs to be talked about because there's so much stigma around it. So I like that Rich Mahogany has a few things to say about that in that section too, which really makes learning and talking about the topic of suicide even easier.
Bringing man therapy to in-person events are a great way to introduce veterans to man therapy. You brought man therapy to a Strong Man community event for veterans. Can you talk about how you engaged veterans with man therapy at this event?
So just as a quick highlight of the event, great guy who's a Toledo, part of the Toledo Fire Department, Marcus Waugh, who won the World's Strongest Fireman along with other events. He decided he wanted to put on an event for veterans and first responders where they could come for free and enjoy a very cool event, which is the Strongman event. And he had people from all over the country come in, local from Ohio, local from Michigan, and compete against each other. And I love this event because it really is the epitome of breaking the stigma when it came to mental health. You have a bunch of strong looking men and women out there, competing and doing all these things while integrating conversations about mental health and wellness throughout breaks in the events and things like that. And what better way to kind of break through that stigma? So we had a lot of veterans and first responders and community members at that event. And so it was really kind of great to see that turnout and that support for this. So as far as, how we integrated some, aspects of man therapy in that, I believe it was Dino Tripodis who came out, and he is a user of man therapy. And he shared his experiences in his own personal journey of recovery. So it was really great that, I think it was about 15 or 20 minutes he came out between one of the breaks in the events and shared his story and talked a lot about, how he reached out, how man therapy helped him to do that, and really did a great job, sort of breaking down, the barriers of what he had to get through in order to do it. And I think his message really resonated. There was actually a point where I wasn't sure, I wasn't really sure like how the audience was kind of responding to that. And there was a point where he sort of asked the audience kind of a question, and everybody responded. I mean, it was like all ears were open and on him. So, I think it's all about that approach, and I think when you can share people's experiences and tell a story about it, I think that's one of the most powerful ways that we can communicate. And so I would encourage, if anybody's watching this that is coordinates any kind of events or anything, definitely having somebody who he can come in and tell their own story is a very powerful method. Beyond that, we also had some great man therapy resources available. We had them spread out on the tables, and the one in particular I really liked for veterans is like something like MREs aren't the only things that can make you feel like crap, and it's like kind of geared towards veterans. So the humor coupled with the seriousness of talking about mental health is something really unique to man therapy, and I think something that really allows people to feel more comfortable reaching out. And I personally am a guy who loves humor in any shape or form, and maybe even in some places that it shouldn't be. But so anytime we can kind of combine that with something so meaningful, I think we're in a good place.